The journalist exposed a criminal empire in her article. The Mafia boss showed up at her door asking to tell his side. What she didn't know was that accepting his offer would pull her into a world where truth had consequences she couldn't imagine. The cursor blinked on Claire Harding's laptop screen like an accusation. 3:47 a.m. The coffee in her chipped mug had gone cold 2 hours ago, but she kept lifting it to her lips anyway, tasting nothing but bitter regret and something that might have been fear. Her studio apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of floorboards from the tenant upstairs. The walls were thin enough that she could hear Mrs. Chen coughing 3 doors down. Claire's eyes burned as she scrolled through the comment section of her article for the 100th time. Shadow networks. How organized crime controls city infrastructure. Published 72 hours ago on an independent journalism site that barely paid her enough to cover rent. The piece had gone viral. 43,000 shares. 812 comments. Half praising her courage, half calling her reckless. Her phone buzzed against the wooden desk, rattling the empty instant ramen cup beside it. Unknown number. The 5th one tonight. Claire watched it vibrate until it stopped, her fingers frozen above the keyboard. The voicemail notification appeared seconds later. She didn't listen. She never did anymore. The apartment felt smaller tonight. Suffocating. Claire stood and walked to the window, pulling back the faded curtain just enough to see the street below. A black sedan sat parked across from her building. Same one that had been there yesterday. And the day before that. The driver's face was obscured by shadow, but she could see the orange glow of a cigarette moving in the darkness. They know where I live. The thought wasn't new. It had been circling her mind like a vulture since the article dropped. She'd written about money laundering through city construction contracts, shell companies with connections to organized crime, names, dates, bank account numbers. Everything she'd spent 6 months investigating after her brother died. Tyler, 23 years old, found in an alley behind a nightclub with a needle in his arm and foam at the corners of his mouth. The official report said overdose. Accidental. Case closed. But Claire had found his journal 3 weeks after the funeral. Pages filled with notes about undercover work. He'd been feeding information to someone, playing informant, and then he'd been abandoned. Claire pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Her reflection stared back, pale and hollow-eyed. 29 years old, and she looked 40. Her brown hair hung limp around her shoulders, greasy from skipping showers. The frames of her glasses left red marks on the bridge of her nose. She wore the same gray sweatshirt she'd been wearing for 3 days. A knock at the door made her jump. Sharp, deliberate. 3 times. It's 4 a.m. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Nobody knocked at 4 a.m. unless something was wrong, or unless they were there to make sure something went wrong. Claire's eyes darted to her phone on the desk. Should she call the police? And tell them what? That she was paranoid? That she'd pissed off people who had more money than God and fewer morals than the devil? The knock came again. Louder. Claire moved on shaking legs to the door, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the kitchenette. She looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Tall. Expensive suit. Dark hair with gray at the temples. He wasn't looking at the door. He was looking at his watch. Her breath caught. Victor Harlow. She'd written his name 47 times in her article. Victor Harlow. Suspected head of the Harlow organization. Linked to smuggling operations, political corruption, and at least 3 unsolved murders. The man who built an empire in the shadows while wearing custom Italian suits to charity galas. And he was standing outside her door at 4 a.m. Claire's hands were slick with sweat. She could pretend she wasn't home, hold her breath, wait for him to leave. But the light was on. Her laptop screen glowed visible under the door gap. He knew she was awake. She opened the door 6 inches, keeping the chain lock engaged. Victor Harlow looked at her with eyes the color of slate. He didn't smile. Didn't threaten. Just spoke in a voice that was quiet and controlled, and somehow more terrifying than shouting would have been. Miss Harding, we need to talk. Claire's throat felt tight. I don't have anything to say to you. That's unfortunate. Victor glanced down the hallway, then back at her. Because I have quite a bit to say to you. About your article. about the things you got right and the things you got dangerously wrong. She started to close the door. His hand shot out, palm flat against the wood. Not pushing, just preventing. I'm not here to hurt you. If I wanted that, you wouldn't have seen me coming. His jaw tightened. I'm here because you wrote half a story and called it truth. And now people are going to die because of it. Claire's hands trembled. That's not my problem, isn't it? Victor's gaze was steady, unblinking. You wanted to expose corruption. I can give you names that would make your article look like a grocery list. Politicians, judges, police captains. But you have to listen first. Why would you do that? Because the people you think you exposed, they're pawns. Victor's voice dropped lower. The real players are still hidden, and they're very unhappy that you've disrupted their system. You painted a target on your own back, Miss Harding. I'm offering you a way to aim it at the people who actually deserve it. Claire wanted to slam the door, call his bluff, but something in his expression stopped her. He looked tired. There were lines around his eyes that photographs hadn't captured. And his hands, she noticed, weren't clenched into fists. They hung loose at his sides. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Victor pulled a business card from his jacket pocket and held it through the gap in the door. But you should trust your own instincts. You've been looking over your shoulder for 3 days. You know they're watching you. The question is whether you want to keep running blind or start running with purpose. Claire took the card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. No title, just a name and a phone number. Think about it. Victor stepped back from the door. When you're ready to hear the rest of the story, call. But don't wait too long. The people you angered don't believe in second chances. He walked down the hallway without looking back. Claire stood in the doorway until she heard the stairwell door close. Then she locked her door. All 3 locks. The deadbolt. The chain. The flimsy sliding lock that wouldn't stop anyone determined. She looked at the card in her hand. Her fingers left sweat marks on the edges. The black sedan was gone when she checked the window. The street looked empty. Normal. But Claire knew better now. Normal was an illusion. Safety was a lie people told themselves so they could sleep at night. She sat back down at her laptop. Opened a new document. Started typing. Victor Harlow came to my apartment tonight. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Tomorrow. Noon. And an address she didn't recognize. Claire stared at the message until her vision blurred. Then she grabbed her coat and her laptop and stuffed them into her backpack. She couldn't stay here. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. The apartment had never felt like home anyway. Just a place to store her loneliness and her regrets. She left the lights on when she walked out. Let whoever was watching think she was still there. The streets were empty as she walked toward the 24-hour diner 6 blocks away. The kind of place that smelled like grease and desperation. She'd sit in a corner booth, order coffee she wouldn't drink, pretend she had somewhere to be when the sun came up. But the card in her pocket felt heavy, like a promise, or a threat. Claire wasn't sure which scared her more. Claire found the envelope at 6:47 a.m., wedged under her apartment door, like a confession someone had changed their mind about making. No postage, no return address. Just her name written in precise block letters across cream-colored paper that probably cost more than her grocery budget. She'd come back to grab clean clothes. Stupid. Reckless. But she couldn't wear the same sweatshirt forever, and the diner bathroom only had a broken hand dryer and paper towels that felt like sandpaper. The hallway had been empty. Silent. The kind of quiet that made her footsteps sound like gunshots. Claire picked up the envelope with shaking fingers. Heavy. Something inside besides paper. She locked the door behind her and sat on the floor with her back against it, too paranoid to move deeper into the apartment. The envelope tore easily. A photograph slipped out first. A little girl, 6 years old, maybe younger, blonde hair in loose waves, gray-blue eyes staring directly at the camera with an expression too serious for a child. She wore a pale pink dress and clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. No note, just the photo and a small white card underneath. An address, Riverside Park, and a time, 2:01 p.m. Claire's stomach twisted. This was a trap, obviously. Textbook intimidation. Show the journalist that you know where she lives, that you can reach her anytime. Use a child's photograph to what? Threaten her? Manipulate her? She should go to the police, file a report, get a restraining order. Except restraining orders were just paper, and the police captain's name had appeared 3 times in her article, connected to Victor Harlow's organization through offshore accounts that nobody was supposed to know about. Claire looked at the photograph again. The little girl's eyes were haunted, like she'd already seen too much, like she understood that smiling was something other children did. It's not your problem. Walk away. But Claire's legs carried her to the shower anyway. She stood under water that never got quite hot enough, washing 3 days of fear sweat from her skin, changed into jeans that hung loose on her hips and a black sweater with a hole in the left sleeve. Grabbed her bag, her phone, the pepper spray she'd bought 2 years ago and never needed until now. The park was a 30-minute subway ride. Claire spent the entire trip watching reflections in the train windows, checking if anyone was following her. A businessman reading a newspaper, a teenager with headphones, an elderly woman with a shopping cart. Normal people living normal lives. She got off 1 stop early, walked the rest of the way, giving herself time to think, to plan an escape route. The park stretched along the river, all brown grass and skeletal trees that had lost their leaves weeks ago. Joggers passed in expensive sneakers. A woman pushed a stroller. Everything looked ordinary. Claire arrived at 1:43 p.m. early enough to scout, late enough that she could still run if her instincts screamed loud enough. She found a bench with a clear view of the main path and sat down, hands buried in her pockets, the pepper spray pressed against her palm. Cold. Useless against professionals, probably, but holding it made her feel slightly less powerless. 2:09 p.m. came and went. Claire's heart rate climbed with every passing minute. This was stupid. She should leave. Go somewhere public. Somewhere with witnesses and security cameras and people who would notice if she disappeared. Then she saw her, the little girl from the photograph, sitting alone on a bench 30 feet away. Same pink dress, same worn rabbit clutched against her chest. Her legs dangled above the ground, too short to reach the pavement. She wasn't looking around, wasn't calling for help, just sitting, waiting. Claire's throat tightened. Where were her parents? Her guardian? Nobody left a 6-year-old alone in a public park. Nobody sane anyway. She scanned the area, saw a couple walking a dog, 2 teenagers skateboarding, a man in a gray jacket reading on another bench. But nobody watching the child. Minutes crawled past. 5, 10, 15. The girl didn't move. Other children ran past her, laughing and chasing each other. She didn't react, didn't turn her head, just stared straight ahead with those 2 old eyes. Claire stood before she'd consciously decided to. Her feet carried her across the dead grass, each step feeling like a betrayal of common sense. This was the trap, the bait. But she couldn't walk away from a child sitting alone in November cold without even a jacket. She stopped 3 feet from the bench. The girl looked up. "Hey." Claire's voice came out softer than she'd intended. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The child didn't respond, didn't blink, just watched Claire with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Then, slowly, she reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Held it out. Claire took it. The paper was lined, torn from a notebook. Child's handwriting. Careful letters in purple crayon. "Please stay." Claire's chest constricted. She looked around again, more frantically this time. Someone had to be watching. Had to be nearby. You can't just leave a little girl alone with a note begging strangers to stay. "Where's your mom? Your dad?" The girl's expression didn't change. She reached up and tapped her throat. Shook her head. "You can't talk?" A small nod. Claire crouched down, bringing herself to eye level. Okay, that's fine. We'll figure this out. Do you know where your parents are?" The girl pointed past Claire. Claire turned. Her blood went cold. 2 black SUVs had pulled up to the park entrance, doors opening. Men in dark suits stepping out with the fluid precision of people who'd done this 1,000 times. 4 of them, spread out in a loose perimeter. And then Victor Harlow emerged from the second vehicle. He walked toward them with the kind of confidence that came from never having to look over your shoulder, never having to wonder if you'd make it home tonight. The bodyguards fell into formation around him. Not quite visible, but never more than a few steps away. Claire's hand went to the pepper spray in her pocket. Fat lot of good it would do. She should run, grab the kid and run, except the child was already sliding off the bench, already moving toward Victor with recognition in her eyes. Miss Harding. Victor stopped 10 feet away. His voice carried the same quiet control it had held at her door. Thank you for staying with my daughter. Your daughter. The words tasted like acid. You left your daughter alone in a park. I left her with guards watching from 4 different positions. Victor's gaze flicked to the man in the gray jacket, still sitting on his bench. To a woman Claire had thought was just another jogger. You were never in danger. Neither was she. Claire looked down at the little girl. Lily. The name came to her from somewhere, maybe buried in her research notes. The child was looking at Claire's hand, at where it still gripped the paper with its crayon plea. What kind of father uses his kid as bait? The kind who's run out of options. Victor's jaw tightened. Lily hasn't spoken to anyone in 8 months, hasn't written notes, hasn't communicated beyond head nods. Then you published your article. I showed her your photo from the journalism site, and she wrote that. He nodded at the paper. First words in 243 days. Claire's head spun. That doesn't make sense. Nothing about this makes sense, Miss Harding. Victor moved closer. His daughter pressed against his leg, one small hand clutching the fabric of his expensive pants. But she asked for you, in her way, and I'm desperate enough to listen. This is insane. Claire stood up, backing away. You can't just manipulate people into what? Caring. Victor's voice hardened. You wrote an article about corruption, about systems that destroy families. My daughter lost her mother to those systems. Your brother lost his life. We're not so different. Don't you dare compare us. Lily tugged on Victor's sleeve, reached up. He lifted her without hesitation, and she buried her face in his shoulder, the stuffed rabbit crushed between them. For a moment, Victor Harlow looked less like a crime lord and more like a tired father who didn't know how to help his child. 5 minutes. Victor's voice gentled. Walk with us. Let Lily see that you're real, that you're not just a photograph. Then decide if you want to hear what I have to say. Claire should have said no. Should have walked away. Called the police. Written an exposé about mob bosses using traumatized children as emotional leverage. But Lily was looking at her over Victor's shoulder with eyes that held something Claire recognized. The same desperate hope she'd seen in Tyler's face when he'd still believed someone would save him. 5 minutes. Claire heard herself say. That's all. Victor nodded once. Started walking. Claire fell into step beside them, every instinct screaming that she was making a terrible mistake. They walked along the river path where joggers passed without a second glance at the man who controlled half the city's underground economy. Victor Harlow moved like someone accustomed to owning every space he entered. Claire kept 2 steps behind, her journalist's brain cataloging details despite her pounding heart. The way his bodyguards maintained perfect formation, how Lily's fingers twisted into the fabric of his shirt, the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow that photographs had never quite captured. 5 minutes. Claire reminded him. You said 5 minutes. Victor stopped near a railing overlooking the water. Set Lily down gently. The child immediately moved to Claire's side, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The stuffed rabbit dangled from one small hand, its button eye hanging by a thread. You wrote that I run a criminal organization. Victor stared at the gray water. Smuggling, money laundering, political corruption. All true. Claire blinked. That's your defense? That's context. He turned to face her. You wrote that I built an empire through violence. Also true. But you didn't write why. You didn't write about the police captain who takes a cut of every operation in the docks. The senator whose campaign I funded because he promised protection and delivered threats instead. The judges who seal evidence and bury cases when it's convenient. Because you're all guilty. Claire's voice rose. You're all part of the same rotten system. Lily flinched. Claire felt it more than saw it. The girl's whole body tensed at the sharp tone. Victor's expression hardened, but when he spoke, his voice stayed level. My wife disagreed with you. Claire's research flooded back. Isabel Harlow died 8 months ago in what official reports called a targeted robbery. Except the thieves hadn't taken her jewelry, hadn't touched her wallet, just put 2 bullets in her chest and disappeared. Isabel was gathering evidence. Victor's knuckles whitened against the railing. Against the Kozlov family, another organization that makes mine look like a charity. She had recordings, documents, names. She was going to testify. And someone killed her for it. Someone put my daughter in the back seat of that car. Victor's voice cracked, just barely. Made her watch. Lily was in the car when they shot her mother. She saw everything. And now she can't speak. Can't scream. Can't tell anyone what she witnessed. Because the trauma locked her voice away. Claire's stomach turned. She looked down at Lily. The child was staring at the water with that same too-old expression. One small hand reached out and took Claire's without hesitation, without fear. Just held on. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. I didn't know. How could you? Victor straightened. The police buried the investigation in 48 hours. Ruled it a random act of violence. Case closed. My lawyers tried to fight it. Got shut down at every level. That's when I understood. The system you want to expose? It's bigger than you think. And it's already protecting itself. So you're what? A victim? Claire pulled her hand away from Lily's grip, ignoring how the child's face fell. You still run drugs. Still hurt people. I run cargo. Victor's eyes narrowed. Expensive cargo that rich people pretend they don't want while creating demand that keeps me in business. Do I hurt people? Yes. The ones who threaten my family. The ones who would do worse if I showed weakness. That's the world you wrote about without understanding how it actually works. Then explain it. Claire crossed her arms. You said you had the rest of the story. So tell me. Victor glanced at his watch. Not here. Not in 5 minutes. This conversation requires time. And evidence. Things I can't show you standing in a park. I'm not going anywhere with you. Lily tugged on Claire's sleeve. When Claire looked down, the girl was holding up her notebook again. A new page. Fresh purple crayon. Just one word. Please. Claire's resolve wavered. She'd spent 6 months investigating organized crime. Interviewed victims. Documented patterns. But she'd never stood next to a 6-year-old who'd watched her mother die. Never felt small fingers grip her hand like a lifeline. One condition. Claire heard herself saying words she'd regret. I record everything. Every conversation. Every document you show me. And when I write about it, I write the truth. Not your version. Not a cover-up. The truth. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then nodded. Agreed. But you don't publish until you have the full story. Not fragments, not speculation. The complete picture. How long? 2 weeks. Victor's tone left no room for negotiation. 2 weeks of access to everything. My files. My contacts. My operation. You want to understand the system? I'll show you every piece. But you do it properly. Claire thought about her empty apartment. The black sedans. The phone calls from numbers that never left voicemails. She thought about Tyler's journal, filled with notes that led nowhere because he'd trusted the wrong people. Why me? Victor looked at his daughter. Because Lily asked for you. And because you're the first journalist who actually got close to the truth. Everyone else just writes what they're told. You dug deeper. He paused. You're also terrified and broke and living in an apartment that should have been condemned 5 years ago. You have nothing to lose by saying yes, and everything to lose by saying no. Is that a threat? It's reality. Victor's voice went cold. The people you exposed in your article, they know your name, your address, your bank account number. They know you bought coffee at the same diner for 3 straight days. You think I'm dangerous? I'm offering you protection. They're offering you a shallow grave. Claire's hands shook. She shoved them in her pockets so he wouldn't see. Looked around the park. The bodyguards were still there, still watching, But beyond them, on the far side of the park, a man in a leather jacket sat on a bench. Phone out. Camera angled their direction. Victor followed her gaze. Noticed what she'd noticed. His jaw tightened. Winston. One of the bodyguards materialized beside them, already moving toward the photographer before Victor finished speaking. The man in the leather jacket stood up fast, started walking, then running. "We need to go." Victor scooped up Lily. "Now. What's happening? You're being watched." "Not by me." Victor strode toward the SUVs. His whole demeanor shifted from controlled to urgent. "Kozlov family. They want to know who you're talking to, what you know." Claire's legs locked. "I should go to the police." "The police captain you named in your article?" Victor threw the words over his shoulder. "The one who's been on Kozlov payroll for 6 years?" "Good plan." The SUV doors opened. Victor placed Lily in the back seat, buckled her in with practiced efficiency, then turned back to Claire. "Get in or don't. But understand that you stopped being safe the moment you published that article. The only question is whether you survive long enough to finish what you started." Claire looked at the park entrance. Saw a second man. This one not bothering to hide. Just standing, watching. Hand inside his jacket. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Just an address. Her address. And a message. "We know." Claire's breath caught. Her apartment. Her neighbors. Mrs. Chen with her persistent cough. The college students on the 3rd floor who played music too loud. "If I come with you." Claire's voice shook. "You keep them safe. My neighbors. You make sure nobody touches them." Victor's expression softened slightly. "Already done. I had Winston move them to a hotel 2 hours ago. Told them there was a gas leak. They're safe. You knew I'd say yes. I knew you wouldn't abandon innocent people." Victor held the car door open. "That's why Lily chose you. Children can tell the difference between people who care and people who pretend." Claire climbed into the SUV before she could change her mind. Lily immediately scooted closer, leaning against her side. The rabbit found its way back into Claire's lap. The car door closed with a sound like a vault ceiling. Victor took the front passenger seat. The driver pulled out smoothly, professionally. The bodyguard from earlier materialized in the second SUV behind them. "Where are we going?" Claire asked. "Somewhere you can't be followed." Victor didn't look back. "Somewhere we can talk without cameras, without ears. Your house. My house." Victor confirmed. "Under my protection. Until we figure out who sent those photographers and what they plan to do about you." Claire wrapped one arm around Lily. The child's breathing had steadied, her small body warm and trusting against Claire's side. Outside the tinted windows, the city blurred past. Familiar streets, unfamiliar choices. She was driving into the heart of the system she'd tried to expose. Sitting in a mobster's car with his traumatized daughter and armed guards. Tyler would have told her to run. Her editor would have said this was insane. Every ethical guideline she'd ever learned screamed that she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. But Lily's hand found hers again. Held on tight. And Claire didn't pull away. The Harlow estate sat behind iron gates that probably cost more than Claire's entire journalism degree. The SUV rolled through smoothly, sensors recognizing the vehicle before the driver even slowed. Claire watched through tinted windows as they passed manicured lawns, empty fountains shut down for winter, and security cameras positioned at intervals that suggested professional paranoia rather than casual wealth. The house itself looked like something from a magazine Claire couldn't afford to subscribe to. 3 stories of pale stone and dark shutters. Wide windows that somehow managed to look both inviting and impenetrable. Not a mansion in the gaudy sense. Just large enough to remind visitors that whoever lived here operated on a different economic plane. Lily stirred against Claire's side as the car stopped. The girl sat up, rubbing her eyes. For a moment she looked like any sleepy 6-year-old. Then her gaze found the house, and something shuddered closed behind her expression. Home. Victor said the word like it tasted bitter. Winston will do a perimeter check. Standard protocol. Protocol against what? Against people who might have followed us. Victor opened his door. Against threats we anticipated and ones we didn't. Against the reality that my daughter can't play in her own yard without armed guards watching. Claire climbed out. legs unsteady. The air here smelled different, cleaner, like money could buy better oxygen. Lily took her hand immediately, small fingers threading through Claire's with unconscious trust that made Claire's chest ache. The front entrance opened before they reached it. A woman in her 50s stood in the doorway, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing slacks and a cardigan that spoke of professional authority. Her eyes went straight to Lily. "She all right?" The woman's voice carried an accent. Irish, maybe, or Scottish. "Fine." Victor's hand rested briefly on his daughter's head. "Nora, this is Claire Harding. She'll be staying with us for a while. Claire, this is Nora. She manages the house, and most of my life, if I'm being honest." Nora's gaze assessed Claire in 3 seconds flat. "Journalist? The one who wrote about us." Victor stepped inside. "She's here to learn the rest. Brave or stupid?" Nora asked. "Haven't decided yet." Claire followed them into an entrance hall that was all warm wood and soft lighting. Nothing like the cold marble she'd expected. Lily's drawings covered one wall, held up with magnets on what looked like a massive corkboard disguised as art. Crayon flowers, purple suns, stick figures holding hands. Lily let go of Claire's hand and ran to the drawings, pointing at one near the bottom. 3 figures, woman with yellow hair, man with dark hair, smaller figure between them. "You drew that last week." Victor's voice gentled in a way Claire hadn't heard before. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." The girl touched the crayon woman's face, then turned and looked at Claire, with an expression that made something crack open in Claire's chest. "I'll show you to your room." Nora's practical tone cut through the moment. "You'll want to settle in before dinner." "Wait." Claire held up a hand. "I didn't agree to stay overnight." "You got in the car." Victor was already walking away, deeper into the house. "That was the agreement. 2 weeks. Full access. You can't investigate halfway. I have a job. An apartment." Claire's voice rose. "I can't just disappear for 2 weeks. Your apartment is being watched by people who want you dead." Victor stopped at a doorway, turned. "Your job as a freelance journalist means you work from anywhere. And your editor won't publish anything you write until he verifies every source, which will take weeks regardless. So unless you have a pet that needs feeding or a relationship that requires explanation, you have no reason not to stay." Claire wanted to argue, found she couldn't. Everything he said was factually accurate and infuriating because of it. "Come on, dear." Nora started up a curved staircase. "Let's get you sorted, Mr. Harlow can be intense when he's in negotiation mode. Best to let him cool down. This isn't a negotiation." Claire followed anyway. "I haven't agreed to anything." Nora made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You're in the house. You're climbing these stairs. That's agreement enough in this world." The second-floor hallway held more of Lily's artwork, more family drawings. Some newer ones showed just 2 figures now, man and child. The yellow-haired woman absent. Nora opened a door near the end of the hall. Guest room, private bathroom. Windows face the garden. Security cameras cover the perimeter, but not this space. Mr. Harlow has rules about privacy. The room was bigger than Claire's entire apartment. A queen bed with a white duvet, a desk by the window, bookshelves lined with actual books, not just decoration. Everything clean and elegant and completely wrong for someone who'd spent the last 3 days sleeping in diners. "I can't stay here." "Why not?" "Because..." Claire gestured helplessly at the space. "Because this is insane. Because I'm supposed to be investigating him, not accepting his hospitality. Because there's no ethical way to write an unbiased article while living in the subject's house." "Then don't write an unbiased article." Nora straightened a pillow that didn't need straightening. "Write the truth. That's what you journalists claim to do, isn't it? The truth is complicated. The truth usually is." Nora moved to the door. "Dinner's at 7. Lily eats earlier, around 5. She'll probably want you there. Girl's taken to you faster than anyone since her mother passed." "Why?" Claire asked. "Why me?" Nora paused in the doorway. "Maybe because you're the first person who didn't look at her with pity. Everyone else sees a traumatized child. You just saw a child. There's a difference." She left before Claire could respond. The door clicked shut with a sound that was neither lock nor freedom. Claire sat on the edge of the bed. Too soft. She'd roll off in her sleep, probably. Or wake up disoriented and forget where she was. The window showed gardens going brown with winter. A playground structure sat unused near a cluster of trees. Swings moving slightly in the wind. Her phone had 1 bar of signal. No new messages. She pulled up her editor's contact. Typed out 3 different texts and deleted them all. What was she supposed to say? I'm investigating a mobster from inside his house. Don't worry. He promised to let me write the truth. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Claire opened the door. Lily stood there holding a stack of books. The rabbit dangled from her elbow. She held up the books like an offering. You want me to read to you? Lily nodded, walked past Claire into the room, and climbed onto the bed with the unself-conscious ease of a child who'd never been told she didn't belong somewhere. Patted the space beside her. Claire looked at the door, at the stairs beyond. She could leave, call a cab, go back to her apartment and her life and her ethical boundaries. But Lily was arranging the books in order of preference, settling the rabbit between them, looking at Claire with eyes that held hope instead of trauma for the first time since they'd met. Claire sat down, picked up the first book, some fairy tale about a princess and a tower and a dragon that turned out to be misunderstood. You like dragons? Claire asked. Lily nodded, drew a finger across the cover where a green dragon breathed silver fire. Claire started reading. Lily pressed against her side, following the words with 1 finger even though she clearly couldn't read yet, just following the rhythm, the ritual. They were on the 3rd book when Victor appeared in the doorway. He didn't come in, just stood there watching his daughter lean against a stranger and look almost peaceful. Dinner in 20 minutes. His voice was careful, quiet. If you're staying. Claire met his gaze over Lily's blonde head. I have conditions. Victor's expression remained neutral. I'm listening. I record everything. Every conversation, every document. No restrictions on what I publish except timing. Agreed. I sleep with my door locked. I keep my phone. I can leave anytime I want without interference. Agreed. But you won't leave in the middle of the night without telling Lily. She's had enough people disappear without warning. Claire's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, Miss Harding. Victor's voice hardened. But if you want the truth, you need to understand all of it, including what my choices have cost, including why my daughter draws pictures of a mother she'll never see again. You want to judge me? Do it with full information. Lily pulled on Claire's sleeve, held up the 4th book. Oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. I need to make a call, Claire said. Tell my editor something, even if it's a lie. Tell him you're going deep undercover. Victor's mouth twisted. That's not even technically false. Dinner's at 7. Try not to look like you're planning my arrest over the salad course. He left. Lily snuggled deeper into Claire's side, turning pages without needing the story read aloud anymore, just wanting the presence. Claire pulled out her phone with her free hand, typed a message to her editor, following a lead, going dark for 2 weeks. Don't file a missing person report unless you don't hear from me by the end of the month. His response came in seconds. This is insane even for you. Be careful. Claire looked at the child tucked against her side, at the mansion around her, at the choice she'd already made without fully realizing it. Too late for careful. Day 3 in the Harlow house, and Claire still woke up disoriented by the silence. No sirens. No neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls. Just the sound of her own breathing and, if she listened carefully, the gentle hum of central heating that actually worked. She'd established a routine faster than she'd expected. Mornings with Lily in the sunroom, while the girl did homeschool lessons with a tutor who asked no questions about Claire's presence. Afternoons in Victor's study, surrounded by filing cabinets full of evidence that would put half the city's elite in prison. Evenings at the dinner table, pretending this fractured family arrangement was somehow normal. Lily appeared in Claire's doorway before the sun came up. She did this every morning now, standing there in pajamas printed with moons and stars, the rabbit clutched under one arm, waiting to be invited in. Claire had stopped asking why, just pulled back the covers and let the child crawl in beside her, warm and trusting in a way that made Claire's throat tight. "Bad dream?" Claire asked. Lily nodded against her shoulder, drew circles on Claire's arm with one finger. A habit she'd developed, tracing patterns instead of speaking words. "Want to talk about it?" A head shake. Then Lily reached for the notebook she now carried everywhere. Wrote in careful purple crayon, "Mama again." Claire wrapped an arm around the small body. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." They stayed like that until the sky outside turned gray, then pink. Until Nora knocked softly to announce breakfast. Lily slid out of bed and took Claire's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Downstairs, Victor sat at the kitchen table with a newspaper and coffee that smelled expensive. He'd abandoned the formal dining room after the second night, when Lily had refused to eat unless Claire sat next to her, and the long table had made conversation feel like shouting across a canyon. Morning. He didn't look up from the financial section. "Sleep well? Your daughter's had nightmares 3 nights running." Claire poured coffee from a pot that probably cost more than her laptop. "You know that, right?" "I know." Victor's jaw tightened. "Her therapist says it's part of processing, that the dreams will get worse before they get better. That's supposed to be comforting? That's supposed to be reality." He finally met her gaze. "You've been here 72 hours and you're already emotionally invested. Imagine living it for 8 months. Claire sat down across from him. Lily climbed into the chair between them, reaching for the orange juice Nora had set out. The child's feet dangled above the floor, not quite long enough to reach the ground. "I found something in the files yesterday." Claire kept her voice low. "Bank transfers from Senator Morrison's campaign to an offshore account. Same account that paid for the warehouse fire on 4th Street last year. The one that killed 6 people. Victor set down his newspaper. "I know." "You knew and you didn't report it?" "Report it to whom? The police captain who authorized the permits? The fire inspector who ruled it accidental?" Victor's voice stayed level despite the anger underneath. "I've been collecting evidence for 3 years, Miss Harding. Waiting for someone with the platform and the credibility to expose it without getting killed in the process. So you're using me. I'm offering you the story of your career." He leaned back. "What you do with it is your choice. But yes, I need you to survive long enough to publish it. That requires keeping you here. Protected." Lily tugged on Claire's sleeve, held up her notebook. "Can we paint today?" Claire's chest constricted. Yeah, we can paint." The child's face lit up, actual joy breaking through the trauma-dulled expression she usually wore. She slid out of her chair and ran toward the stairs, presumably to get art supplies. She never asked Isabel to paint. Victor's voice went quiet. "My wife tried everything. Art therapy, music. Nothing worked. Then you show up and she's drawing again, writing notes, almost smiling. I'm not her mother." "No, you're not." Victor stood, picking up his coffee cup. "But you're here, and that's more than she's had in 8 months." He left Claire alone at the table. She stared at her untouched breakfast, appetite gone. The files upstairs called to her. Evidence of corruption so deep it made her original article look like a footnote. But Lily's footsteps thundered back down the stairs, arms full of watercolor sets and paper, and Claire found herself abandoning journalism for art. They painted in the sunroom. Lily worked with intense focus, tongue poking out between her teeth. Claire tried to paint something recognizable and failed. The child giggled, actually giggled, a sound like breaking glass but somehow musical. "I'm terrible at this," Claire admitted. Lily wrote in her notebook, "That's okay. Mama was terrible too." "Yeah?" The girl nodded, pointed to a framed painting on the far wall, abstract swirls of blue and gold. "Mama made that. Dad says it's beautiful, but I think she just spilled the paint." Claire laughed. The sound startled her. When was the last time she'd laughed? Before Tyler died. Before the investigation consumed her. Before her life became nothing but anger and insomnia and cold coffee. Lily leaned against her, paint-stained fingers leaving marks on Claire's borrowed sweater. Drew a heart on her paper. Added 3 stick figures inside. 1 tall. 1 medium. 1 small. "That's us?" A nod. Claire's vision blurred. She blinked hard. This was temporary. Professional. She was here to investigate, Not to bond with a traumatized child who needed stability. Not another person who would eventually leave. But Lily was already painting another picture. This one showed a house with a yellow door, flowers in windows, a sun that took up half the sky. Afternoons meant the study. Victor's private office was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with legal texts and financial records. A safe sat in the corner, digital lock glowing red. He opened it without hesitation when Claire asked. Inside, USB drives, ledgers, photographs of meetings that weren't supposed to be documented, audio recordings on devices that looked like they cost more than Claire's car. Everything's labeled. Victor handed her a drive. Dates, locations, participants. Cross-referenced with the written logs. I've been building this archive since Isabel died. Why? Because she believed the system could be fixed if enough light was shone on it. Victor's expression hardened. I think she was naive, but I promised her I'd try. Claire plugged the drive into her laptop. Files organized with meticulous precision. Transaction records showing money flowing from legitimate businesses through shell corporations into political campaigns. Recordings of conversations where officials discussed operations that would make RICO prosecutors salivate. This is enough to take down the entire network. Claire scrolled through folders. Senator Morrison, Captain Burke, Judge Hendricks, all of them. If you can publish it without getting killed first. Victor poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a decanter despite it being 2 p.m. The Kozlov family won't let this go public quietly. They have too much invested. The Kozlov family killed your wife. Yes. Victor's knuckles went white around his glass. And they'll kill you too if they think you're a threat. That's why you're here. Why you need to understand the whole picture before you write a single word. Claire accepted the whiskey. Didn't drink it. Just held the glass and watched light refract through amber liquid. Tell me about Isabel. Victor was quiet for so long Claire thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sat down in the chair opposite hers, looking older than his 37 years. She was a prosecutor. We met when she was investigating one of my operations. He almost smiled. She hated me. I was everything she'd sworn to put away. But she was also honest in a way I'd never encountered. Wouldn't take bribes. Wouldn't look away. So you married her? So I fell in love with her. Victor stared at his whiskey. Spent 2 years convincing her I wasn't irredeemable. She made me promise to walk away from the business, to go legitimate. I was working on it when the Kozlovs made their move. Why kill her? Because she found evidence linking them to human trafficking. Children. Victor's voice went flat. She was going to testify. Bring down their entire operation. They couldn't allow it. Claire's hands shook. The laptop screen blurred. She saw Tyler's face. Heard his voice on the last voicemail he'd left. Hey, sis. I'm close to something big. Gonna make you proud. My brother was an informant. Claire heard herself say it. Working with the police, feeding them information about dealers in the university district. I know. Her head snapped up. What? Victor pulled out another USB drive. Your brother's case file. The real one. Not the sanitized version the police released. He was working for Captain Burke, promised protection in exchange for testimony. Then Burke sold him out to the suppliers he was informing on. Claire's vision tunneled. That's not possible. The timestamps don't lie. Victor's voice was gentle in a way she'd never heard. Burke called his contact 15 minutes after your brother's last check-in. 3 hours later, Tyler was dead. Overdose staged to look accidental. Claire stood up fast enough that her chair fell backward. You're lying. Listen to the recordings. Victor didn't move. I've had investigators tracking your brother's case since before you published your article. Because Isabel was friends with Tyler. They met at a community center where she volunteered. She was trying to help him get out. Stop. She made me promise to find out what happened, to make sure whoever was responsible faced consequences. Victor finally looked at her. You think I approached you randomly? I've been waiting for you to get close enough to the truth that you'd be willing to hear the rest. Claire's knees gave out. She sat on the floor, back against the desk. Tears she'd held back for 2 years finally breaking through. Victor said nothing. Just sat there. Waited. Lily found them an hour later. Claire still on the floor. Victor still in his chair. Empty whiskey glasses on the desk between them. The child looked from one to the other, then crawled into Claire's lap without a word. Just held on. That night, Lily had the worst nightmare yet. Screaming without sound, thrashing in sheets soaked with sweat. Claire and Victor reached her room at the same time. He from the master bedroom, Claire from the guest room. They stood on opposite sides of the bed, both reaching for the child. Lily grabbed both their hands, wouldn't let go. "It's okay, sweetheart." Victor's voice cracked. "You're safe. We're here. Both of us." Claire found herself saying. "We're both here." The girl finally calmed. Breath evening out, but she didn't release their hands. Held them like anchors. Victor met Claire's eyes over his daughter's head. "This is who I am. All of it. The files you're reading. The child you're comforting. The wife I couldn't save. You want the truth? This is it." Claire looked at Lily's tear-stained face, at Victor's exhausted expression, at her own reflection in the dark window. Someone she barely recognized anymore. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. I see it." Day 11, and Winston found the surveillance equipment at 6:23 a.m. Claire was halfway through her first coffee when the head of security burst into the kitchen with a device no bigger than a shirt button pinched between his fingers. His face was the kind of pale that came from seeing something very bad. "How long?" Victor's voice went cold. Flat. Unknown. Winston set the bug on the table like evidence at a crime scene. Found it in the study. Behind the bookshelf. Professional grade. Broadcasting range of 1/2 mile. Claire's stomach dropped. The study, where she'd been reviewing files, recording interviews, building the investigation that would expose everyone. Check everywhere. Victor stood. Every room, every vehicle. "I want this house swept top to bottom in the next hour." Already started. Winston's jaw was tight. "But sir, if they've been listening, then they know everything." Victor cut him off. "How much Miss Harding knows. What evidence we have. How close we are to publishing." Claire's hands shook around her coffee cup. "The Kozlovs?" Winston and Victor exchanged a glance, the kind that held entire conversations without words. "We need to move Lily." Victor was already walking toward the stairs. "Secure location. Now." "No." Claire surprised herself by speaking. Moving her will traumatize her worse. She's finally starting to feel safe here. Safe is an illusion when people are actively trying to kill us. Victor's voice rose. "I won't risk my daughter because you've gotten attached. And I won't watch you make decisions out of panic." Claire stood her ground. "We don't even know what they heard. Maybe the bug was placed yesterday. Maybe they have fragments of information. Moving Lily tells them they've gotten to you." Victor's fists clenched. His control was slipping. Claire could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his breathing had gone shallow. "Where is she now?" Claire asked Winston. "Playroom, 3rd floor. 2 guards outside the door. Then she's protected." Claire forced her voice steady. "Let's figure out what they know before we make decisions that can't be undone." Victor stared at her for 3 long seconds, then nodded once. "Sweep the house. Find every device. I want a full report in 30 minutes. Winston left. Victor sank into a chair, head in his hands. The veneer of control cracking enough that Claire saw what was underneath. Fear. Raw and barely contained. "I can't lose her too." His voice came out rough. "I can't bury another person I love." Claire sat down across from him. "You won't. We'll figure this out." "You don't know that." "No. But I know you've survived worse. And I know Lily needs you functional, not falling apart." He looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. "How are you so calm?" "Because someone has to be." Claire wasn't sure where the words came from. "And because panicking won't help us understand what we're dealing with." The sweep took 90 minutes. Winston's team found 4 more devices. 1 in the master bedroom, 1 in Claire's guest room, 1 in the garage, 1 in Lily's playroom. Claire felt violated in a way that made her skin crawl. They'd been listening to everything. Her conversations with Victor, her phone calls to her editor, the stories she read to Lily before bed. The playroom device was placed 3 days ago. Winston laid out the bugs on the dining room table like an autopsy. The others are older, 2 weeks at least. Before I arrived, Claire's voice sounded distant to her own ears. They've been watching the house since the article dropped. Victor's expression had gone beyond anger into something colder. Planning. Waiting for the right moment. Moment for what? To eliminate the threat. Winston pulled up security footage on his tablet. And they're not waiting anymore. Camera caught movement on the north perimeter at 0400 hours. 3 individuals. Professional surveillance. They pulled back when our patrol came through, but they'll be back. How do you know? Because that's what I'd do. Winston's tone was matter-of-fact. Scout defenses, identify weak points, then strike when the timing is optimal. Claire's mouth went dry. When? Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Victor stood. They know we're onto them now. They'll accelerate their timeline. We should call the police. The police captain who's on Kozlov payroll? Victor's laugh was bitter. The one who has direct access to our location and security details? Excellent plan. Then what do? We prepare. Victor's voice hardened into something military. Winston, I want full perimeter lockdown. No one in or out without my personal authorization. Activate the panic room protocols. Sir, if they're planning a serious assault, then we make sure they regret it. Victor cut him off. But our priority is Lily. She gets out safely no matter what happens to the rest of us. The words hit Claire like a physical blow. The rest of us. She'd become part of the calculation, part of the targets. I should leave, Claire heard herself say. This is because of me. Because I'm here. If I go, they kill you within 24 hours. Victor's tone left no room for argument. You're safer here than anywhere else in the city. Like it or not, we're in this together now. Lily appeared in the doorway. Still in pajamas, the rabbit dragging on the floor behind her. Her eyes went wide at the expressions on the adults' faces. Is something wrong? She wrote in her notebook. No, sweetheart. Victor's voice transformed instantly. Gentle, reassuring, just grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. Lily looked unconvinced. Walked straight to Claire and climbed into her lap, small arms wrapping around her neck. Claire met Victor's gaze over the child's head. Saw her own fear reflected back. The day passed intense preparation. Winston's team reinforced every entrance. Checked weapons Claire didn't want to think about. Ran drills for scenarios that made her stomach turn. Claire tried to maintain normalcy for Lily. Painted with her in the sunroom. Read her 3 stories before lunch. Played with the dollhouse in her room while guards checked sightlines through the windows. But the girl wasn't fooled. She kept drawing the same picture. A house with dark clouds above it. Stick figures inside with worried faces. I'm scared, she wrote finally. Claire's chest tightened. Me too. Lily looked up at her. Will you leave? No. The word came out before Claire could think it through. I'm staying right here. Promise? Claire thought about her apartment, her job, her life before this. All of it felt like someone else's memories now. Promise. Dinner was silent. Lily picked at her food. Victor barely touched his. Claire forced down enough to keep from worrying the child more than she already was. Nora cleared the plates with efficiency that suggested she'd lived through worse. The house felt different tonight. Tighter, like it was holding its breath. Bath time. Victor said to Lily. Then bed. The girl protested with a note. It's only 7. Special circumstances. Victor's tone was firm, but gentle. You can take a stuffed animal. 2, even. Lily looked at Claire. Will you be here in the morning? Yes. But the girl's expression said she'd heard promises before that got broken. Claire followed them upstairs. Sat on Lily's bed while Victor ran the bath. The child picked out 3 stuffed animals. The rabbit. A bear with 1 ear. A giraffe missing spots. When Lily was clean and in fresh pajamas, she crawled under her covers and looked at both adults with an expression too wise for 6 years old. I heard Winston talking. She wrote, Men are coming. Bad men. Victor's face went pale. Lily, I'm not stupid. The girl's crayon pressed hard enough to indent the paper. They're coming because of what Mama was doing. Because of what Claire is doing now. Claire's throat closed. Sweetheart, this isn't your fault. I know. Lily's next words were careful, deliberate. But if something happens, I want you to know I'm glad you came. Both of you made things less quiet. Victor's control finally shattered. He pulled his daughter into a hug that looked like it hurt. Nothing is going to happen. I promise. But promises were just words. And words couldn't stop what was already in motion. At 2:47 a.m., the power went out. Claire woke to darkness absolute. No hum of electricity. No glow from the hallway nightlight. Just silence broken by her own heartbeat. Then the gunfire started. Not close, but not far enough away either. Automatic weapons. Professional. Sustained. Claire rolled out of bed, instinct overriding thought. Grabbed her phone. No signal. They'd cut communications. Her door burst open. Winston. Night vision goggles. Weapon drawn. Panic room. Now. Move. Where's Lily? Already secured. He grabbed Claire's arm. But we need to move. They breached the perimeter. East side. How many? Too many. Winston pulled her into the hallway. Stay low. Stay quiet. The house that had felt like a fortress now felt like a trap. Claire followed Winston through darkness, trusting him to navigate. Heard shouts from below. More gunfire. Closer now. They rounded a corner. Found Victor carrying Lily. The child's face was buried in his shoulder, body rigid with terror. This way. Winston led them to what looked like a regular wall. Pressed his palm to a hidden scanner. The wall section slid open. Revealed a reinforced steel door. Inside. Victor pushed Lily through first. Then Claire. The panic room was 12 by 12. Concrete walls. One monitor showing security feeds. Supplies stacked in corners. A space designed to survive when everything else fell apart. Winston, get in here, Victor ordered. Can't, sir. Someone needs to coordinate the defense. Winston was already backing away. Keep her safe. The door sealed. Victor locked it from inside with a code Claire couldn't see. On the monitor, she watched Winston disappear into darkness. Lily was shaking. Silent tears streaming down her face. Claire pulled her close, wrapped her in arms that couldn't actually protect her from anything. On the monitor, figures in tactical gear moved through the house. Professional. Coordinated. They knew the layout. Victor's hands curled into fists. His knuckles white. I'm sorry, he said to no one and everyone. I'm so sorry. Outside their reinforced shelter, the sounds of violence continued, and all they could do was wait. The panic room felt smaller with every passing minute. Claire sat on the floor with Lily pressed against her chest, the child's breathing uneven but quieter now. Victor paced. 3 steps one direction, 3 steps back. His phone in his hand showed no signal, but he kept checking anyway. On the security monitor, chaos unfolded in grainy night vision. Winston's team engaging the intruders. Muzzle flashes lighting up rooms Claire had eaten breakfast in. Men falling. Others advancing. The violence was surgical. Professional. How long can we stay in here? Claire's voice sounded hollow in the reinforced space. 72 hours if needed. Victor didn't stop pacing. Air filtration. Water. Rations. But they won't last that long. They? Either us or them. Victor's jaw was tight. Winston knows what he's doing. But they have numbers. Lily's hand found Claire's, gripped tight. The girl's eyes were fixed on the monitor, watching violence she was too young to understand but old enough to fear. Don't look, sweetheart. Claire tried to turn the child's face away, but Lily shook her head, pulled out her notebook with trembling hands. I need to see, so I know who to remember. The words hit Claire like a fist. 6 years old, and already thinking about survivors and witnesses. Already cataloging who might not make it through the night. Victor crouched down in front of his daughter. His hands cupped her face. You don't have to be brave right now. You can be scared. You can close your eyes. Mama didn't close her eyes. Lily wrote. She looked at them. The men who hurt her. I was hiding, but she didn't hide. She wanted them to see her face. Victor's composure finally cracked completely. Tears tracked down his face unchecked. I know, baby. I know she was brave. I want to be brave too. Claire's chest felt like it was caving in. She pulled both of them close. formed a small circle of warmth in the cold concrete room. Outside, people were dying. Inside, they were trying to hold on to something human. The monitor flickered. Winston's voice came through the intercom. Distorted but functional. "Sir, we've pushed them back to the perimeter. But they're regrouping. This was reconnaissance. They'll come harder next time." "How many casualties?" Victor's voice was steady despite his tears. 3 of theirs confirmed. 2 wounded. None of ours down yet. But Peterson took a hit. He'll live. The files. Victor stood abruptly. "The USB drives in the study. Did they get to them?" "Negative. Study is secure." "But sir, they weren't trying for the files." Victor went very still. "What do you mean?" "They bypassed the study entirely. Went straight for residential areas." Winston's pause was heavy. "They were hunting people, not evidence." Claire's blood ran cold. They wanted to send a message. They wanted to eliminate anyone who could testify. Victor's voice hardened. This wasn't about stopping the investigation. This was about making sure no one survives to publish it. Claire looked at Lily. At the child who'd already lost her mother to people who believed witnesses were problems to be solved. An idea formed. Terrible and necessary. "I need my laptop." Claire stood. "The one in the guest room." "Are you insane?" Victor stared at her. "You're not leaving this room." "I'm not. But Winston's team can get it." Claire's mind raced. "They think we're cornered, helpless. What if we publish now? Tonight. Everything." Victor's eyes widened. "You're not ready. The article isn't finished. It doesn't have to be perfect." Claire's voice gained strength. "It has to be public. If the information is already out there, killing us doesn't bury it. It just confirms it. You'll lose control of the narrative. The story won't be polished. The story will be true." Claire met his gaze. "And it'll be live before they can stop it. That's what matters." Victor looked at his daughter, at Claire, at the monitor showing his home-turned battlefield. Then he pressed the intercom. "Winston, I need you to retrieve Miss Harding's laptop. Guest room." Carefully. "Sir, I don't recommend." "That's an order." 12 minutes later, a compartment in the panic room wall opened. Winston's hand appeared holding the laptop, then withdrew. The compartment sealed. Claire opened it with shaking fingers. Battery at 43%. Enough. The panic room had emergency internet. Satellite connection that couldn't be cut. She opened her files. The article she'd been crafting for 11 days. Thousands of words of investigation. Evidence. Testimony. It wasn't elegant, but it was devastating. Victor read over her shoulder, his presence solid and warm behind her. "You're naming everyone." His voice was quiet. "Including me. Especially you." Claire didn't stop typing. "This only works if it's complete. No protected parties. No half-truths. I could go to prison. You were already prepared for that." Claire glanced back at him. "You said you wanted the truth exposed. This is what it looks like." Lily tugged on Claire's sleeve, held up her notebook. "What about me? Will people know my name?" Claire's hand stilled on the keyboard. She looked at Victor. He nodded once. "No," Claire told the girl. "Your name stays private. This is about the adults who made bad choices, not about the children who survived them." Lily seemed satisfied with that, crawled back into Claire's lap while she typed. The child's weight grounding. Real. Claire added the final pieces. The recordings Victor had given her. The financial documents. The connection between organized crime and political corruption. The truth about Tyler's death. About Isabel's murder. About a system so compromised that exposure was the only disinfectant left. Her finger hovered over the publish button. "Once I do this, there's no taking it back. I know." Victor's hand covered hers. "Steady. Do it." Claire pressed publish. The article went live on her editor's site at 4:47 a.m. By Fiverr, it had been shared 800 times. By 5:15, major news outlets were picking it up. By 5:30, the first FBI vehicles were pulling up to the estate. Winston's voice came through the intercom. "Sir, we have federal agents at the gate. They're asking for everyone inside to come out, peacefully." "Are the Kozlov operatives still here?" pulled back when the FBI arrived, melted into the dark. Victor looked at Claire, then at Lily, at the monitor showing dawn breaking over his destroyed home. "Time to face the music," he said quietly. They emerged from the panic room into a house that looked like a war zone. Bullet holes in walls Claire had hung Lily's drawings on. Broken glass. Blood on hardwood floors. Nora was directing cleaning staff with military efficiency, already trying to restore order. Outside, FBI agents in body armor formed a perimeter. Behind them, news vans, cameras. The kind of attention that made Claire's journalist brain spark with equal parts satisfaction and terror. A woman in a dark suit approached. FBI shield visible. "Agent Richardson. Which one of you is Claire Harding?" "I am." Claire stepped forward. "Your article went viral in the last 30 minutes. Agent Richardson's expression was unreadable. "We'd like to talk to you about your sources. They're documented." Claire kept her voice steady. "Every claim. Every piece of evidence. It's all in the attachments." Agent Richardson turned to Victor. "And you're Victor Harlow." "I am. You're under arrest." She signaled to other agents. "Conspiracy. Money laundering. We have a list. I have a lawyer." Victor's voice was calm. "And I'm prepared to cooperate fully in exchange for immunity. I have information about Senator Morrison, Judge Hendricks, Captain Burke, and the Kozlov organization." Agent Richardson's eyebrow raised. "That's quite an offer." "I have quite a bit of information." Victor glanced at Lily. "And one non-negotiable condition. My daughter stays with Miss Harding, under protective custody if necessary. But not in the system. Not in foster care. Not where anyone can use her as leverage. That's not standard procedure. Nothing about this is standard." Victor's voice hardened. "You want the files that put 20 public officials in prison? You want testimony that dismantles the largest criminal organization in the Eastern Seaboard? Then you guarantee my daughter's safety." Agent Richardson looked at Claire. "You willing to take responsibility for a 6-year-old? Claire thought about her apartment, her freedom, her life that was already destroyed the moment she started investigating. Looked down at Lily holding her hand. "Yes." The next 72 hours were chaos. Victor was processed, released to house arrest with an ankle monitor. Teams of federal investigators descended on the estate. Claire gave 17 hours of recorded testimony. Lily drew pictures in empty conference rooms while adults decided her fate. The article exploded beyond anything Claire had imagined. 2 senators resigned. Captain Burke was arrested trying to flee the country. Judge Hendricks was found dead in his office. Apparent suicide. The Kozlov leadership went to ground, but federal raids seized enough evidence to justify dozens of arrests. The organization fractured, scattered, and through it all, Lily stayed with Claire, sleeping in hotel rooms under protective custody, drawing her pictures, slowly starting to speak again. The first word came on day 4. Sitting in a safe house eating cereal. Claire. Lily's voice was small, rusty, but real. Claire dropped her spoon. Victor looked up from his legal documents, hope breaking across his face. "Yeah, sweetheart. Don't leave." 2 words, quiet but certain. "Never," Claire promised. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time since this started, she meant it. 3 months felt like 3 years, and 3 days all at once. Claire stood in the kitchen of a house that wasn't a mansion, but wasn't small either. Something Victor's lawyers had negotiated as part of his plea deal. Modest by his old standards. Palatial by Claire's. 2 stories. Fenced yard. Neighborhood where people mowed lawns and walked dogs and didn't ask too many questions about the man with the ankle monitor. The coffee maker gurgled. A normal sound. Claire had learned to appreciate normal sounds. The hum of the refrigerator. Lily's footsteps on the stairs. The newspaper hitting the driveway every morning with headlines that were someone else's problem now. She poured 2 cups. Added cream to both. Muscle memory from 3 months of sharing breakfast. Victor appeared in the doorway at exactly 6:47. Same time every morning. Creature of habit even when his entire life had been dismantled and rebuilt. He wore jeans and a sweater. No suits anymore. Those belonged to the person he'd been. Morning. He accepted the coffee. Sleep okay? Better. Claire had stopped having nightmares 2 weeks ago. Or at least stopped waking up screaming. Progress measured in small increments. Lily had one. Victor sat at the kitchen table. The one they'd bought together at a furniture store where everything had price tags and nobody knew who they were. Called for you around 3. Why didn't you wake me? Because you need sleep too. Victor's voice was gentle. And because I'm her father. I'm allowed to comfort my own daughter. Claire sat across from him. 3 months and they were still figuring out the boundaries. What this arrangement was. Co-parents felt wrong because she wasn't Lily's mother. Guardian and guardianee felt too clinical. Friends felt inadequate. Family felt terrifying. The newspaper landed with a thump. Victor retrieved it. His ankle monitor caught the morning light. He had 3 more years of wearing it. 3 years of check-ins and restrictions, and proving he'd left his old life behind. The article still made front page sometimes. New arrests, new revelations. Claire's byline had become synonymous with investigative journalism that actually changed things. She'd been offered positions at major outlets, book deals, speaking engagements. She'd turned them all down. Senator Morrison pleaded guilty yesterday. Victor scanned the article. 23 counts. Life sentence probable. Good. Claire didn't feel triumph anymore. Just tired satisfaction. One more domino fallen. Judge Hendrix's family is suing the city, claiming he was murdered, not suicide. Maybe he was. Claire had stopped believing in convenient endings. The evidence is what it is. Lily appeared. Hair sleep must. The rabbit under one arm, more stitched patches than original fabric now. She'd started talking regularly 6 weeks ago. Full sentences. Questions. Complaints about broccoli. All the normal speech development that trauma had stolen and time was slowly returning. Morning. She climbed into Claire's lap like it was her designated seat. What's for breakfast? What do you want for breakfast? Claire asked. Pancakes, with chocolate chips and whipped cream. And sprinkles. How about oatmeal? Victor countered. Lily made a face. You're mean. I'm practical. But Victor was already standing. Compromise. Pancakes with fruit. No sprinkles. That's still mean. But Lily was grinning. She did that now. Smiled, laughed, acted like a child instead of a trauma survivor. Most days. Claire made pancakes while Victor cut strawberries. Lily set the table with meticulous care, counting out 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 glasses. Always 3. She'd stopped drawing pictures of 2 people. Always 3 now. They ate together. Lily chattered about her tutor coming at 10, about the book she was reading, about the girl next door who had a trampoline and had invited her over. Normal childhood concerns. Can I go? Lily asked. To Madison's house? She has puppies, new puppies, 8 of them. Are her parents expecting you? Victor asked. I told Madison I'd ask. She said her mom said it's okay if you say yes. 3 months ago, the idea of Lily going to a neighbor's house would have been impossible. Too dangerous. Too exposed. But the Kozlov organization had fractured. The leadership arrested or fled. The threats had diminished from constant to occasional to rare. Yes, Victor said. But Claire goes with you, and you stay where she can see you. Deal. Lily bounced in her chair. Can we bring a toy for the puppies? Puppies don't need toys. They need sleep. Claire laughed. But we can bring dog treats if the store has them. After breakfast, Claire cleaned up while Victor reviewed legal documents. Testimony preparation for upcoming trials. He was cooperating fully. Had been for 3 months. Trading information for leniency. For freedom. For the chance to be present in his daughter's life. You okay? Claire asked quietly. Lily was upstairs getting dressed. Define okay. Victor didn't look up from his paperwork. You seem tense. 6 people are going to prison because of my testimony. Victor's jaw tightened. People I worked with. Ate dinner with. Some of them have families. They also committed crimes. Claire sat beside him. You can't save everyone. I'm not trying to save them. I'm trying to figure out if what I'm doing is justice or revenge. Can't it be both? Victor finally looked at her. His gray eyes were clearer than they'd been 3 months ago. Less haunted, still carrying weight, but bearing it better. I don't know anymore. I used to be certain about things. Now everything feels complicated. Welcome to the rest of us. Claire's smile was small. Uncertainty is how normal people live. Is this normal? Victor gestured between them. This arrangement? I don't know, Claire admitted. But it's working. Lily thundered back downstairs wearing mismatched socks and a dress over leggings. Ready? Can we go now? The puppies won't stay small forever. The neighbor's house was 6 doors down, walking distance. Claire held Lily's hand out of habit more than necessity. The ankle monitor meant Victor couldn't leave his property without authorization, so it was just the two of them. Madison met them at the door. 7 years old, missing a front tooth. Best friends with Lily within 3 weeks of moving in. Her mother, Jennifer, waved from the kitchen. They're in the garage. Jennifer called. Fair warning, it's chaos. It was. 8 golden retriever puppies stumbling over each other in a pen. Lily's face lit up like someone had turned on the sun. She sat on the floor and let puppies climb into her lap, licking her face and tugging on her clothes. Claire watched from the doorway. Jennifer appeared beside her with coffee. She's good with them, Jennifer observed. Natural with animals. She's good with most things when she feels safe. Claire accepted the coffee. Thank you for including her. She's a sweet kid. Jennifer's tone was casual, not prying. You've been good for her. Both of you. Victor, too. I see him working in the garden when I drive by. He's planting something. Tomatoes, Lily announced without looking up from the puppies. And peppers. And herbs. He says we need fresh vegetables. Claire says he's becoming domestic. Claire felt her face heat. He's adjusting. We all are. Jennifer's smile was knowing. Second chances are rare. Good to see people taking them seriously. They stayed for an hour. Lily played with puppies. Madison showed her a fort she'd built in her room. Normal things. Simple things. The kind of childhood Lily had been denied when her world was violence and fear. On the walk home, Lily was quiet. Content quiet. Not trauma quiet. Claire had learned to tell the difference. Can we get a puppy? Lily asked. Ask your father. I'm asking you first. Lily's logic was sound. You're easier to convince. I'm not easier. I'm just less practiced at saying no. So, that's a maybe? Lily's grin was calculating. That's a, we'll discuss it with your father. Back at the house, Victor was in the garden. Actually planting. Dirt under his fingernails. Sweat on his forehead despite the cool air. Doing something physical and immediate that required no moral calculation. Dad. Lily ran to him. Can we get a puppy? No. Victor didn't hesitate. Claire said maybe. Claire said we'd discuss it. Claire corrected. Don't misquote me. Victor looked between them. The two people who'd become his entire world. I'll think about it. Which means no. But I'm buying time. Lily accepted this with surprising grace. Ran off to play in the yard. Within sight. Within reach. Safe. She's getting better, Victor said quietly. Talking more, engaging. Almost like a regular kid. She is a regular kid. Claire watched Lily examine something in the grass. She just had irregular trauma. But kids are resilient. So are adults, apparently. Victor stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. 3 months ago, I thought my life was over. Now I'm planting tomatoes and debating puppies. Disappointed? Surprised? Victor's smile was small but real. I expected prison, expected to lose everything. Instead, I have this. He gestured at the yard. The house, his daughter playing. It's not what I had, but it's better. Better how? It's real. Victor's voice was soft. The mansion was impressive. The power was intoxicating. But this? Watching my daughter play with puppies and come home happy? This is what I was trying to protect all along. I just didn't realize it. Claire's throat tightened. She thought about her apartment, her old life, the loneliness she'd worn like armor. I came here to write a story, she said. Expose corruption. Get justice for Tyler. Did you? Victor asked. Yes. Claire watched Lily laugh at something only she could see. But I found something else too. Something I wasn't looking for. Family? The word hung between them. Too big, too complicated, but also accurate in a way that made Claire's chest ache. Yeah, she admitted. Family. That evening, they ate dinner together. Spaghetti Lily helped make, sauce everywhere, laughter filling spaces that used to hold tension. Afterward, Claire read bedtime stories while Victor cleaned up. Then they switched. Victor tucking in his daughter, Claire handling dishes. Routine. Domestic. Normal. Claire found Victor in the living room afterward, sitting in the dark. Not brooding, just thinking. You okay? I wrote to Isabel's parents today. Victor's voice was rough. Told them about Lily's progress. How she's talking again. They want to visit. That's good. It's complicated. They blame me for their daughter's death. They're not wrong. You didn't pull the trigger. I created the situation that got her killed. Victor rubbed his face. That's close enough. Claire sat beside him. Not touching, but close. Isabel made her own choices. She was an adult, a professional. She knew the risks and decided they were worth it. I'll never know if I could have stopped her. If I should have. You can't rewrite the past. Claire's voice was gentle. You can only build a better future. That's what she'd want for Lily. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to look at Claire. Thank you. For staying. For not running when things got hard. For becoming part of this mess. I didn't have much choice. You were very persuasive. You had every choice. Victor's intensity was back. The controlled focus that made him dangerous and compelling. You could have walked away a dozen times. But you didn't. Why? Claire thought about Tyler. About justice. About a 6-year-old girl who'd lost her voice and found it again. Because some stories are worth finishing, she said. And some people are worth staying for. The house settled around them. Lily safe upstairs. The world outside continuing without them. They'd exposed the corruption, dismantled the network, changed the system in small but meaningful ways. But the real transformation happened here. In this ordinary house with its ordinary problems and its extraordinary second chances. Claire leaned her head against Victor's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her. Not romantic. Not yet. But not just professional either. Something in between. Something that didn't have a name but felt like healing. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Normal. Inside, they were building something new from broken pieces. And for the first time in years, Claire felt like she belonged somewhere. Not because she'd found the perfect place, but because she'd found people worth staying for.